So glad you could join us today. We are down a few folks just because of unforeseen situations, but that's cool. And we hope all is well with the other folks that were supposed to be on the panel. However, we have Dr. Yolanda Bennett in the building with us today, and we are going to honor our matriarch. So, because we are down a few folks, we will have more time to kind of talk about the people that were really important to us, the folks that we are honoring today. Um, Once again, I mean, you guys know who I am. My name is Carla, and I'm the host and founder of the podcast entitled I'm My Sister's Keeper. My Sister's Keeper was created so that women would have a safe space to discuss everyday issues that affect their well being while keeping shit real, raw, and uncut. So if you guys are ready, we're ready. Dr. Bennett.
Yes, ma'am.
So I know that you got the questions that we are supposed to answer today.
I
Do
do.
so. Are you ready? Do you need me to ask you the questions and then you
Yeah,
can?
you can go ahead and ask the question.
Okay, because I know you're very organized and you do not things that are not organized. So
Why
here
did
we
you
go.
say that? Because somebody else said that to me last night.
You are very organized. Okay,
I
I know
try to
that.
be.
I know that. Here we go. So who are
Okay.
you honoring today? Who are? Oh,
I
we have
am.
Jess in the building. Who are you honoring
Oh,
today?
okay. Great. Great, great, great.
Well, I'm gonna bring Jess in. Let me bring Jess in.
Okay.
Hi, Jess.
Hi, Jess.
Hello, how are you?
We are good. We are
Great.
actually just starting.
Hold on, let me see if I can get you.
I was telling the viewers that we're down a couple of folks today, so it
Can
just
y'all
gives
hear me?
we
Uh-oh.
can hear you.
Okay, I can hear y'all now.
We can hear you. So it just gives us the opportunity to speak a little longer about those that we are honoring. And so we now have Dr. Bennett on, and she is going to take the floor. Dr. Bennett, who are
I'm
you
here.
honoring, and what was your relation to that person?
I am honoring my grandmother, Christine Jackson. And I just think that of all the people in my family, including my mom, but of all the people in my family on both sides, I think it's definitely um, important for me to pay homage to my grandmother, Christine Jackson.
I agree 100% because I knew Christine Jackson very well. May she rest in peace. And I'm
Mm.
sure it's Sunday, so she cooking, okay?
Right,
She's
right.
cooking a meal in heaven.
Right.
Uh, what life lessons did you learn from Miss Christine Jackson?
Well, one of the things that I think I admired and learned most about my grandmother, and I'm gonna put cooking aside because we are
Yes,
those who
yes,
Know Christine. But
right,
I think for me, it was more or less the embodiment of being a woman. What it was okay to, I have a very traditional family, but not traditional in the sense that women don't have voices. And so my
right,
grandmother definitely had a voice, and she made sure that her voice was heard all the time. So while she took care of her family, she did not work outside of the home. Her job was to take care of her family. She took care of my grandfather, she took care of her kids, she took care of her grandkids. And so when I think about that, I think about how I am as a woman, how I am as a mother. I enjoy taking care of my family. I enjoy taking care of my grandchild. And it's important to me to be able to carry that on like my grandmother did. My grandmother was very loving, and she always smothered her grandchildren with a lot of love. I felt like I could do no wrong when it came to my grandmother. And so I do that with my own grandchild. She's everything. And I knew that I was everything to my grandmother. So
yeah.
I want to be able to do that for my grandchildren as well.
That was well said because she was everything. But not
Right.
only was she everything for her family, she was everything for her community. So the same amount of love that she gave you guys was no different from what she gave everyone else, in all honesty, because that was the type of woman that she was. So
Right.
I think that's well said. From the lessons that you learned from her, and I know that you spoke about, family is everything and really being a stand-up mom and grandmother and wife. How did that mold you? Outside of what you just spoke about, how else did that mold you? Your
Mhm.
relationship with your grandma?
Well, I think, I want to be as tough as my grandmother. I've always said that. Christine Jackson didn't play. I'm gonna tell you, she didn't play. As
No.
loving as she was, that don't cross her. Don't cross her. And so I think that I do have that trait more so than I have that trait. My mom is the same way, but I think that I carry it. And my mother says this a lot too. She says that there are certain things that I do or certain things that I didn't get from her, I got from my grandmother
Mhm.
because I live with I don't want to say live, but my grandmother took care of me when my parents worked. And so
Right.
I was at my grandparents' house every single day.
Yeah.
There was never a time I wasn't at my grandparents' house. So I think that the influence that my grandmother had on me was great. I mean, it was a big influence. And so I knew what it was like to, sit down and have a spread for a meal.
Yeah.
We don't shortchange that at all. I still have that more
Yeah.
so than my own mom. When I'm cooking, I'm cooking for everybody.
Right.
And anybody who wants to drop by, you can drop by. There's going to always be a plate for you. It's going to always
Right.
be a plate for you. And so that's something that I have always held dear to my heart. I called my daughter this morning and I said, okay, and we haven't seen each other this week because I've just been super, super busy. And so has she. And I said, okay, so what are we doing for dinner today? And she's like, I don't know, Mom. What do you think? And I said, well, either I'm going to cook or we gonna go out. What do you want? What do you want to do? And so she's like, well, it doesn't matter to me. So I automatically start thinking, okay, let me see what can I put together and what do we need? And then I had a friend, I was telling her what I was getting ready to do. She was like, girl, if you cook, just let me know. I said, well, you drop by anytime. That was my grandmother. That just didn't matter. And that's always, I don't even think about it. I just do it. If you want to come by, if I'm cooking, girl, come on by. There's always a plate for you. And so to me, that's my love language. I know that was my grandmother's love language. She would feed everybody. And so and I do that as well. I really do.
What are your favorite dishes? So when you think of
Ooh,
Christine Jackson, what are your favorite dishes, meals that she cooked that resonate?
okay. So I'm gonna be very
No,
descriptive.
that resonate. Love.
Right. I'm gonna be very descriptive. There's two things that always stick out in my mind with my grandmother. And people get this confused. So I'm gonna put the caveat in. There were biscuits and there were rolls. My grandmother rolls were
Yeah.
excellent. We know that. I also make
Yep.
homemade rolls too. People say, they the slap your mama kind of rolls. I get it. Mwah. I love y'all for saying that about my rolls. But baby, my grandmother's biscuits
Yeah. Yeah.
melt in your mouth. And I watched my grandmother for years make these biscuits. My biscuits, I can't even touch it. Whenever she made biscuits, I never saw her measure anything. Never ever measure. All I remember and all I could tell you is that this then popping those biscuits, dipping them in that butter, popping those biscuits on that tray, on the pan and baking them. And then when they come out, she made her own preserves, her own jelly, and slapping that on that biscuit, hands down. There's nothing can come close to that. I've been in this world long enough. I still haven't found anything that will ever come close to Christine Jackson's biscuits. My second dish that she loved, that was my favorite dish, she did pepper steak and grits and gravy and them biscuits. Baby, this To this day, I can
I know
still
she could
taste
cook.
it.
I know
I can
I
still
know she could
taste that.
cook. She could cook. She
So
could.
those were the two things. Now she could fry some fish. Now I do fry fish. I'm good at frying fish. But she fried fish and she did all that other kind of stuff. She did soul food, but my grandmother always had a twist on everything. So
Mm.
it wasn't just traditional soul food. It was always something extra. But those two things stand out most in my mind of all the years, those two things. And I miss that. I so miss it.
And her fried chicken. Okay.
Oh, well, yeah.
Her fried
Goes
chicken. She
without
had some
saying.
of the best fried chicken. And I have her chicken recipe and I cook it to this day.
Oh,
And
see, I
ever I
don't
go
even
and I
have
make
that.
chicken, they want fried chicken. I go, yes, ma'am, I have it.
Oh, we're
I'll
gonna have
give
to
it to you,
share that. I
girl.
don't have it.
Yes, 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 I have it. Miss Jackson's fried chicken, and it is a crowd pleaser. If you were
Okay.
able to speak to your grandma today, if you were able to have a conversation with her, what would that conversation look like? What would you say to her?
Well, first of all, I would introduce her again to her great grandchildren to show her
Hmm.
what her lineage looks like. And
Yeah.
the fact that, and I would tell her, I have tried to make sure that I have kept her name alive, and that I miss her, and that I wish that she was here to sprinkle some of
Hmm.
that dust on us so that I could be the woman that I know she knew I was going to be, or that she, kind of molded. And I would thank her for that, just giving me that and instilling that into me, and probably not even recognizing it. But I looked at my grandmother and I just always felt that she was just this she was a wonderful person. There's no question about it. She was just a wonderful person. And I really truly wish that my kids
Your grand
had the opportunity to meet her.
your grandmother was like 6'1",
Oh, she was a
5'9",
big, like, she was
six
a big
one
girl.
maybe six.
Yes. She was probably about 6 feet because my mom is 5'9". And my grandmother was
Yeah,
taller than her. Yeah.
and she
Yeah.
was
We
elegant
don't come from
and
small women.
graceful.
Huh?
Hmm.
What
She
did you
was she
say,
was
Carla?
graceful and
Oh, yeah.
she was graceful and she was elegant, even being a tall girl. Because she was a tall girl. She was always one of the tallest girls in the room, and
Right.
she still
I
looked good. She carried herself
right.
well.
Yes, and I remember when I got married, it was so funny when I got married, and she wanted to know, what was the colors and everything. So I told her, I said, Grandma, you could wear whatever you want to wear. So she was like, no, she always called me sweet child. She was like, no, sweet child, I'm not, I'm no, no. So she picked out her own dress, this blue dress with these sequins on there. And then so I said, well, what are you gonna do with your hair, Grandma? She's like, don't worry about it. She's like, I'm going to wear a turban. And I was like, and my grandmother was known for wearing turbans. And I said, a turban? She's like, I'm gonna make me a turban to match my dress.
Oh,
Yes, she made her a turban
okay.
to match her dress. She made turbans. All these hair wraps and stuff that we wear now, my grandmother was wearing that. She made all those types of things. She always wore a hair wrap or a turban, always. And I think that there's something cultural about that we just didn't know about. But when I think back on, the years of her doing it, she always wore hair wraps or turbans, always. And she had beautiful hair, but she wore a turban.
We miss her. We miss her a
Yes,
great deal. We miss her a
yes,
great deal. We miss her a
absolutely,
great deal. Uh,
absolutely.
Thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing, Boo. Jess. Jess is in the building.
Hey,
Can you hear me, Jess?
I can. Can you hear
Hi,
me?
Jess. Tell our viewers
Hello.
a little.
How you
Yes, I can hear
doing?
you. Tell our viewers a little bit and then to you answering the question. So who is
Oh,
Jess?
that's so interesting. So I'm Jessica, aka Chef Jess, Jessica Davis. Here's the thing. We're going to talk about, when we talk about the matriarch of my family, it will also be my grandmother and the contribution she made, which is why I love to cook so much. I got on her nerves being in that kitchen, I'm sure. But I'm a veteran. I'm a United States Army veteran. And even in the Army, I didn't cook. I should have, but I didn't cook. But I was logistics. So, and that's the funniest thing about it. I was in logistics. But an Army veteran. I went to Troy University in Alabama. I live in Atlanta, Georgia. I have 4 kids. I have 2 grandbabies that wait on me to cook. My kids, that's my love language. So I completely agree with you, Doctor. I completely agree with you. Yeah, that's definitely my love language and was definitely my grandmother's love language. So, and my grandmother's a Virginia girl from the country, Martinsville, Virginia. Lucille Penn Frisbee. Frisbee was her married name. The Penn is that maiden name. And we just went to honor my grandmother. My mother just turned 70. And so her birthday gift that she asked for was for us to go visit Virginia, where her people are from. My mother lives in Minnesota now. But she was like, I want to go see my mom. My grandmother's been gone since 2013, but we went to her gravesite as a group together this past July 31st, actually August 1st. We went to go see my grandmother and just, pay homage to her. And then her parents are buried in the same area. She's buried where her parents are. And a funny story about my grandmother, she a graceful woman. Oh, a God-fearing woman. But let me tell you something. That man did her wrong. Her husband, Clarence, he got a headstone in Delaware to this day. It says Clarence at Frisbee and has his birth date and stuff on it. He a tourist and all that. Have his birthday on it. Got my grandmother's start date in life, but not that sunset. She said, take me home. He died first. She said, take me home. He wasn't worse than my grandmother didn't cuss. For real. I mean, maybe back in her what she called her worldly days. But by the time grandma 30, 35, she wasn't like that no more. So grandma said, I don't want to be buried with, you can imagine I don't want to be buried with his ass. Basically what she said, take me home. Don't bury me in Delaware by that man. And she paid for that plot. So we took her home. She told me, she said, you're not my oldest granddaughter, but you my most compliant granddaughter. she said, you make sure and I made sure they took my grandmother home. I said, oh, you won't do this. We're going to all meet up in Virginia where she's from and bury her with her parents. She don't want to be buried with that man. Mm-hmm. And he had to go. And she said it so graceful and nice. She said, take me to the country. Take me home. I said, yes, ma'am. So we took her home. That was her wish, and we took her home.
Clarence must have been a handful. Clarence must have been a handful.
Papa was a Rolling Stone. Yep. And he wasn't my biological grandfather, who was also a mess. I'm named after him. My grandfather was named Jesse Koger. And I'm Jessica. So, yeah, my mother named her firstborn child after him. And he was a mess, but he died years ago. I don't remember my grandfather. I just know I was like 3 or 4 when he passed. I think I was just turned 4 when he passed. So, and he died at work on his equipment. He was a mean half German man. He was mean, and he didn't have his teeth that morning. And he went to work with his teeth, he might have died at home, but he ended up going to work because he would never miss any days off. But my grandmother carried that man. And what people don't talk about, and I don't want to sound like a bitter person, people don't talk about the elevation of a grown man happens from that strong woman. That the one that births him and nurtures him, and the one that raised him, and also the woman who takes care of him. The woman who takes care of him when he's getting all the praise and sunshine and accolades and flowers. It's that woman that stands 10 toes down, says it with her chest, that stands behind him, that makes him the man that he is. So I stand on that. And my grandmother did that for 2 men. My grandmother did that for 2 men. So while I wouldn't, and she even baptized Clarence. She baptized him in the tub at home. She had the minister come over the house because he was kind of a heathen. He was definitely in the world, definitely wasn't trying to listen to the Lord, but he knew he was dying. And when he decided to do that, my grandmother said, if you're going to lay up in this house after you done cut a fool with me, you're going to have to release that stuff to the Lord. You have to release that stuff, rededicate yourself. And she stood strong on that, said it with a chest. That woman had the minister come over, baptize that man in some bath water, prayed over, baptized him, and then let him go on and to his, meet his maker. So I say that about Lucy Penn Frisbee. That is my grandma. Oh my goodness. That woman was powerful. She also wasn't a real short woman either. She was brown skinned, beautiful skin. and she used to before she died, she had quit smoking cigarettes, but I don't smoke cigarettes, but nobody smoked a cigarette like my grandmother. She had the little purse, little coin purse thing. She opened it up, she get a little cigarette, and she tapped it a little bit. So graceful. Smoke, wet her lips a little bit, get it right. She had a little mold on her lip. She get it right. And then she light a cigarette. She had a specific lighter. My grandmother was fancy, y'all. She wore heels. She was 77. She died at 80. She was fancy, y'all. I still got some of her heels upstairs. My grandmother was that chick. But one thing that I asked for before she left this earth was a pan that she used to fry chicken in and make some other pork chops. And I have that pan in my kitchen on the rack. And every time I fry chicken, almost I use that pan if I'm not using my deep fryer. So when I think about Miss Lucy, I'm like, oh, that's my Dottie. Yay. So no, that's a little something about me. That's who I'm inspired by. So we're going to celebrate. We celebrate these matriarchs. I'd be remiss not to celebrate Lucy Penn Frisbee. I'd be remiss. Mm-hmm. So that's just graceful, God-fearing, fancy. Even the way she drank coffee, it was fancy. She smoked cigarettes, fancy. I'm not even gonna act like she had a bunch of money. She was cool, financially, but I'm not gonna act like she had a bunch of money. Besides, she made it work with what she had. Absolutely. And how generous in her spirit she was to other people. Mm-hmm. And I thank God that He allowed me to have just a smidgen, a morsel of her grace. And she was slick funny. Grandma was funny, and she liked some good entertainment. So I say that, and her love language was food. And she was a nurse. She used to work second shift. So she'd be going to work about 2 in the afternoon. She might get off at 12 midnight if she had a decent shift, if she didn't have to work overtime. And when I tell you, before my grandmother went to work, wasn't no McDonald's and subs and stuff like that, girl. No, ma'am. No, ma'am. No, ma'am. No, sir. No, she gonna get in that kitchen. She gonna fry some chicken. It seemed like she moved with such grace, but the meal got done so fast. Mm-hmm. No shortcuts. And I heard you talking about your grandmother's butter biscuits or butter rolls.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yes. Yes. And I just I get that. And my grandmother was just that girl. And she would tell us stories about how her mother, my great grandmother, Paulina, how she would be in the kitchen and just make it happen with some cast iron biscuits and some taking care of taught my granddaddy to read, honey. She taught my granddaddy to read. That's what I'm saying. Behind every great man, accomplished man, is that woman who stood down and held him down. Mm-hmm. And that's what my grandmother did. So she would get in that kitchen, and to this day, they'll smother pork chops and that fried chicken. And girl, she do some chicken with some lima beans. She called her diet food. She makes some lima beans with some chicken and a little bacon. You know how they used to keep it in the Maxwell or Folgers coffee can, the little grease. Put that in there. It started up. Stop playing with me. I can taste it like I'm at her house right now. I can just
right.
It fulfills my spirit. It edifies me. And she would just call it her diet food, and they'd be so creamy and stuff. It just be right. My mother doesn't eat chicken thighs, and she ate my grandmother's chicken thighs. She can't stand chicken thighs. She said they got a vein or something in them. She don't like it. I said, Mom, it has to have a blood spot. She said, I don't care, but your grandmother's is the only ones I eat. And she be in there dogging out that chicken thigh like it was a chicken breast. And my grandmother would sit there and giggle with her little mole on her lip, just sit there and giggle. And have her, and then she'd be ready for church on Sunday. And that's how we really learned the Lord. For years, I couldn't read Revelations. For years. I finally have a couple times down. My grandmother had me scared. I walked through the valley of shadow of death. I was like, oh my goodness. Oh my goodness, I'm so scared, Grandma. But she had me scared to see it. I was like, no. She was like, you just got to trust the Lord. She was like, you got to trust the Lord. And I used to be like, but Grandma, how you not scared? She said, you can't be. Not when you know him. Not when you know him. So I really appreciate that woman with everything in me. Her birthday is March 30th, and and she died March 2nd, right before her birthday. She turned 80, about to be 81, and in 2013, and I miss my grandmother. I do. I miss that woman. Now I have other grandparents, and I love them dearly too. But if you're talking about impactful things that she did on my life, the cooking, the grace, the praising the Lord, the standing and holding your man accountable, meaning what you say, helping others, being fashionable, being the urban hunt. Girl, you got to have it, right? My grandmother knew how to adorn that head. She knew how to hold her head up. And I love her for teaching me that. And she never, and I've always been, okay, to some people, a size 14, 16 is not extremely chunky. But growing up I'm a 72 baby. So growing up, I was.
Mm-hmm. Uh-oh, what happened?
I don't know. Okay. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what the hell is happening.
It just cut off. There you go.
Are you guys? I don't.
Yes, I'm back.
I don't.
Oh no, you good. I was just saying.
What the hell is going on?
That's okay. We won't let it stop us. We got the grace of our matriarchs. We won't let it stop us. I know that. So, and I just remember all the things she taught me, and I'm so grateful for her and teaching me what I know. I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful. And so celebrating her life has been just in even the little things I do. The pan I cook in, one of the pans that's my favorite. And my mother made sure my grandmother left me that pan. She was like, my older cousin asked me for it. And she was like, girl, grandma had that little rounded cast iron pan. And she said, I always wonder what happened to it. I said, girl, you talking about this one right here? Like, how did you get it? I said, I asked grandma for it way before she knew she was going to meet the Lord. I said, when you go, grandma, the only thing I want is that pan. And I would just spend so many hours in the kitchen with her. And I could talk about just the lima beans, which I don't like. Now I eat them because of her. But even then, I only ate hers. But now I eat them. But still to this day, I ain't had a lima bean yet taste like my grandmother's. Not one yet. Not even mine. And I can burn. Not even mine. So I love that Lucille. I love Lucille Penn Frisbee. I swear. It's just, I just thank God for that I had a prayer. And also my grandmother get on her face and pray for us. She would get on her face and call upon the name of the Lord and make sure we were okay. And so I remember I said, well, my sister was in trouble one time and I said, Lord, and I got on my face like my grandmother would do. And she said, ooh, girl, I've been fasting praying. She said, I ain't gonna lie, my sister got locked up, but that's what she needed to have a sober moment so she could finish her life the way she needed to with grace and the mercy of God. And so she actually did that. It took her going to jail for, it was only like a week, but it gave her enough soberness. And my grandmother and I were praying for my sister. And she said, I was on my face praying, and that's where I got it from. So when I